Welcome back. Today I've got a 2009 Pontiac Vibe, the best car Pontiac never made. We may as well just call it a Toyota Matrix because that's really what it is. So the complaint today is we've got a traction control light and a VSC light flashing while you're driving. I just started it up. There is no fault light. So I raised the vehicle, raised the wheels off the ground. And when I tried to take it for a drive, I backed out maybe 5 feet and the lights came on. As you can see, as soon as I get the wheels rolling, I've got some miles, speed there. As soon as the wheels start rolling, the VSC light and traction control light comes on. So we do indeed have a fault. We're gonna start where we always start. We're gonna check codes. I'm using Matco Maximus 4.0 today. This one does have topology, which is handy sometimes, but not always needed. Looks like we're gonna let it finish, but it looks like we've got 2 PCM codes. System list. See, this is why I don't really care for the topology that much, because yeah, it's great. It shows you what network each module's on, but that's not too useful for me. But I have to click in to each one to see what codes they have, right? Well, I can just go to system list and see all of them in one list, and I can expand them each, and I can just scroll on through, and I can see what codes are in each module. And I just prefer to do it this way over the topology. So PCM, we've got a P0717 P0793, input speed sensor, no signal, intermediate shaft 1 speed sensor, no signal. So I think that's why we are seeing a VSC light and traction light. Transmission data display. What have we got? Looks like input speed. So we're going to need that. Intermediate. Let's go back. And I'm going to only take a look at the speed sensors. Input speed, intermediate, and then we should have a vehicle speed or output speed. Hit OK. And we'll graph. Typical Toyota data rate is really slow. I'm surprised they even give you any information. Okay, so I'm gonna put it in gear. We're in drive now. Wheels are off the ground. So now the wheels are rolling. I see no speed signal at all. Speed sensor says 0, input speed 0, and intermediate shaft speed 0. Yet the speedometer is working. So is this a case of I can't really trust what the scan tool is telling me? That's usually what I run into when I scan Toyotas. Remember, this is a Toyota with a Pontiac skin wrapped around it. So most likely I'm just going to have to manually test the speed sensors. So where I'm going to go from here is take a look at the wiring schematic and study how do these speed sensors work, and decide what I'll do from there. Taking a quick look at the wiring schematic. This is a 5-speed automatic transmission. We've got 1 output speed sensor and 1 input speed sensor. So let's logic this out. The speedometer does work, even though it doesn't show on the scan tool. The speedometer does work, so most likely the output shaft speed sensor is working just fine, and we need to concentrate our efforts on the input speed sensor. Here's the location. I think, I color-coded it. So the output speed sensor is right here at the top of the transmission, and the input speed sensor is right here, kind of still on the top but on the side. So that's where we need to focus. and we'll go back to the schematic. So it's a really simple circuit, only two wires, and this is most likely a pulse generator type of sensor, meaning it generates its own signal to the computer, but I don't know that for sure. I'd have to verify that in the information, but I think the easiest way to do this is just to disconnect that one sensor and then test across the sensor itself and just test it, do an ohm check, and see if the sensor is either in specification or not. If the sensor is in specification, we need to do a wiring verification. If the sensor is just faulty, then slam dunk, you know, throw a sensor at it. Well, it's kind of nasty under the hood. Got oil leaks basically everywhere. So kind of a mess. So anyways, can I get a view of it? There's the output speed sensor, and the input speed sensor is way down there. Gonna be, see that little black thing? But that's gonna be pretty difficult to access. So I think I'm probably gonna have to get at it from below. So let's raise it up in the air and see. Of course, there's like zero access underneath here either because of these plastic panels. So probably gonna have to take this panel loose and get at it from in here. Give me a second. Yep, there it is right there. Okay, check it out. Now that I've got that panel out of the way, I stuffed the flashlight up in there so I can see. There's the, I'm gonna get my hand in there at the same time. There's the sensor we're trying to get to. I'm just gonna remove that one bolt and then pull the sensor out so I can do a resistance check on it. Really tight space in here. And I just dropped my flashlight. All right, so I got the headlight, or the flashlight repositioned in there. Can't get a good angle on that. So I'll probably just have to unbolt it and then disconnect the connector. So loosen up that bolt. Well, don't make these too easy to work on. Look, here's a little better view of it through this hole. See the sensor right there through that hole. Okay, now I'll see if I can get my hand in there and get it out of there. Get it disconnected. Nothing too concerning in there. So we'll do our resistance check now. All right, so I've got the speed sensor here on the bench. I'm gonna put the meter in ohms. The specification for the speed sensor is 580 to 660 ohms of resistance. I'm gonna do a self-test of the meter. Touch them together, it should read very close to zero. So we know our tool's working. Test resistance across the true terminals. Make sure that they don't touch or you get an inaccurate reading. So already we've got almost 900 ohms of resistance. So this sensor does fail the test. Seems like that was a pretty easy diagnostic. So the first thing I'm going to do is recommend a new speed sensor, and most likely that's going to take care of the problem. This is like I said, this is a really easy one, and all it took was a logical process, and we decided, well, probably the easiest way to do it is the quick and dirty method and just remove it and do an old-fashioned resistance test. New aftermarket sensor. Basically looks identical to the old one. I've used these in the past with no trouble. There's self-tester meter. So the new sensor is within specification. And our old sensor way out of spec. So we didn't really need to break out any crazy special tools or lab scopes or anything to diagnose this one. We just kind of had a logical process and decided, well, the easiest way to go about this is just old school, pull it out and test it on the bench. Okay. Let's go ahead and erase the codes and clear codes. There we go. Okay, codes are erased. It's probably upset because the front wheels are turning and the rears are not. We'll see. I might have to actually drive this. No code, so that's a good sign. I'm gonna assume that the VSC light and the traction light is probably upset because we don't have all 4 tires turning. So it probably thinks that we had a traction, loss of traction, and then the system says, and the system basically says to itself, well, I see the front tires turning but not the rear, so what's up? So let me see what happens when I drive it. Also replacing the sweet and juicy cabin filter on this car. Alright, so I've got all 4 tires back on the ground. I've got the engine running. Obviously we cannot trust the scan tool data because it doesn't even show any engine RPM, so that would explain why we didn't have any data whatsoever earlier. So now I'm just going to go drive it with all 4 wheels on the ground, and we'll make sure, throw it in reverse. Already we're rolling and the light's not on, so that's a good sign. Okay, well, looks like we got this Pontiac Vibe, totally a Pontiac Vibe. Looks like we got this Pontiac Vibe fixed. It wasn't too difficult. It was a pretty pretty straightforward, easy diagnostic, and just replace that input speed sensor and we're all good. Thanks for watching.